All right. Right. Hi, and welcome everyone to the next episode of the Keptn community meeting. Today it's July 15th. And yeah, this time it's again the meeting more focused on the features that have been implemented from the Keptn core team. As I see, we don't have any other issue on the agenda, meaning that I think we can directly jump over to the first person around, who is Florian, showing us what he has worked on or implemented in the last 2 weeks.
All right, thank you. So I hope the screen sharing works this time for me. But in any case, so today I want to show you 2 pull requests that I've worked on during the last 2 weeks. So the first one was refactoring of integration tests, or actually it was more of a rewrite of integration tests, because we recently, or actually some time ago, we already discovered or identified that a couple of our integration tests are pretty outdated. First of all, because they have been written in Bash, which is not the most efficient way of doing integration tests, to say the least. And also because they didn't really cover our use cases well enough in order to really be sure to make if they work. And one of them, so the quality gates test, was a little too overcomplicated because it used a couple of external Keptn services and APIs, such as the Dynatrace API. And this made it hard to have a reproductive tests and also executing them locally made it quite hard, or it was quite hard to execute them locally, which also, yeah, shouldn't be the case, because it should be as easy as possible to integrate, to test those and make sure everything works when filing a pull request. So that's why I decided to give it a go and write them in Go, actually, instead of Bash. And that turned out to be a quite efficient solution to do that. So we already have a set of helper functions and libraries that make it really easy to, for example, first of all, execute commands using the CLI, or also to interact with the Keptn API and to trigger sequences and see if they end up in the state that we want to have them at a certain point in time. And yeah, so basically I won't go over every line in the test, but basically what I rewrote was, first of all, the delivery assistant test, which kind of tests if the manual approvals using the CLI are working as expected. So basically we here have a shipyard file. So this is the same as in the old test. We have a couple of stages where we have different combinations of approval strategies. So first of all, purely automatic, then one with a manual approval strategy in case of pass, and then another one with warning. And so basically in this test, we first of all use the CLI to create the Keptn project and the service. And then we basically trigger a couple of approvals. First, one with result pass, result warning, and result failed. And then we basically check if the automatic approvals are approved automatically, as they should. And in case if we expect the manual approval, we check if we got the correlating approval that triggered event. Yeah, so that's that. So the other test I rewrote was the quality gate test. So as I mentioned before, here we had the dependency to the Dynatrace API. And from there, we took actual performance SLIs from a real service running there. And for an integration test, it honestly was a little bit too much, because here we had some randomness that we couldn't plan for, and therefore they proved to be a little bit flaky at times, because we didn't always get the same values, and that's why we decided to isolate that part and just test the mechanic of triggering evaluation using the CLI, checking if the desired get SLI.triggered event was sent by the Lighthouse service. Then now in this case, we generate the get SLI.finished with the actual values ourselves, and then send it back, and then we check whether the Lighthouse service correctly evaluates the result and see if the expected score and yeah, basically the expected evaluation.finished event is received. And yeah, as you can see with using Go, it's quite easy to test it in much more detail than we previously did in our bash scripts. And I think this will overall help the quality and have more reproductive test outcomes. All right, are there any questions about this pull request? All right, if not, I will continue with the next one. So this is actually still in progress, but nevertheless, I would like to let you know what I'm working on here. So basically, with the upcoming Keptn version, we plan to introduce the feature of having a sequence queue that's being maintained by the shipyard controller. And this sequence queue should ensure that at a given point in time for a certain service within a stage of a Keptn project, no two sequences are running at the same time in order to not interfere with each other and mess up each other's configuration within the Git configuration repository. The pull request is mostly done. One thing that's left is to, basically do some cleanup and checking if everything works as expected. So I've already implemented a couple of integration tests where I tried to also test as many edge cases as possible. All in all, this pull request has gotten quite complex because during implementation, we discovered that there are some edge cases that we need to consider. So for example, if you do have a manual approval within a sequence, this requires a little bit of a special treatment, because if a manual approval is pending for a certain sequence, then this should actually not block other sequences from running. And in that case, if another sequence is being queued while an approval is pending, that new sequence should take over. And then in case in the meantime the approval is done, it should actually stay in a suspended state until the other sequence that has been started in the meantime has been finished. So there were some edge cases and some potential timing issues that I really wanted to make sure that they do not cause problems. Nevertheless, maybe since this is a very new feature that might affect how sequences are executed, what I just thought today, maybe it would be a good idea to have this configurable and also deactivatable by a feature flag, for example, or a value in the Helm chart. So maybe that's something that we could discuss either in this meeting or in another. Just wanted to throw that out there. All right, other than that, are there any questions about that feature? All right.
Just a question to your question. Do you think that, or is it, what do you mean by the feature flag? And a feature flag that allows me to not block or to not queue a sequence for an approval, or to end or disable the approval state?
Basically a feature flag to enable or disable the queuing mechanism. So in order to, as a fallback, have the behavior that we previously had in place in the current version. That was just an idea.
Is the queuing mechanism controlled by one, or is it easy to enable disable?
It should be pretty straightforward since it's only being controlled by the shipyard controller itself. So, and it's implemented as a separate component that just needs to be added to the configuration of the controller or not.
Okay. I think we should not discuss it now, but we should bring it up, the idea to allow annual disabling this feature.
All right. Okay, if there are no further questions, I will hand over to Ermin.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I plan to present one pull request for Keptn's bridge, which is about showing the recent sequences on the project board. And yeah, as it already says, in the bridge, we have the dashboard where we have an overview of all projects. And there we now introduce this recent sequences list where I can see an overview of the last 5 sequences that have been triggered on this project. Yeah, actually there are some dependencies and some discussions, and I will just show you a live demo here. So I have here my project overview, the SockShop project, where I can see the recent sequences. As you can see, I have a sequence running here, and yeah, it will also allow me to yeah, directly by clicking, for example, on this delivery sequence here, yeah, to have a look on this execution. Yeah, if I trigger a new sequence, because currently I don't have the queuing feature activated yet, it should appear here in a few seconds, because we're polling here, I think every 30 seconds, and you will see that, yeah, we show always just the latest 5. So this delivery direct will be dropped. And yeah, as you can see, here is this new delivery that I just started. It will say when it was started today at 5:17, and I can have a look at this sequence by clicking on this deep link here. Yeah, that's actually all about this feature. Are there any questions?
2 questions from my side. Yeah, I mean, can you please do me a favor and go to the environment screen?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, clicking on the project.
Because here we now do a line break between the service and the image, the service and the version. Can you jump back to the overview?
It seems like, yeah.
Would it make sense to also do a line break to have cards in def in the first line, and then in the second line, the stage was executed at the time, because right now, as you can see on the last example, that production is cut off. And before we had a very long name for a sequence, and that was all then, yeah, there was then a line break. And yeah, as you can also see here, last Tuesday is also cut off.
Yeah, because those are overlapping here. Of course, we can do it as we have it in the environment screen. So here, just in 2 lines, so that we have more space for the sequence name and this timestamp, and yeah, make it 2 lines.
Cool. And I assume that deep link for the service also works?
Yeah, of course. When I click on the service, then I have yeah, this specific version here.
Okay.
Okay, please just ignore this things here, because this is a demo environment. But of course, I triggered the 0.12.2 delivery, and this is basically currently in def. And for example, I can click on the cards in staging. So this was 0.12.1. And here I can see that this is in staging, and yeah, it breaks for some reason. And yeah, this deep link to the service, of course, works as well.
Okay, and then one final question. Can you also jump back? Okay, we do the line break. And what happens when the sequence happened, let's say 2 weeks in the past? Because then it's not the last Tuesday, then it's actually maybe it happened on July 1st.
I have to check on that, but I think it will write down the date and the time.
Okay, then we see the date instead of the day.
Yeah, but I will provide the example.
Okay.
With that specific use case. Yeah, just
cool.
to make sure. Yep. Okay. Thank you very much. If there are no more questions, I'm handing over to Klaus.
Thanks. So, yeah, for me, yeah, nothing much visual stuff, but for example, the bridge server is now completely to 100% in TypeScript. This was related to an issue that came up with the BenderBot, because a package required fully ESM support, and now we have it. This also enables us to move more from the bridge client side to the server side, and yeah, extend here more and have fully TypeScript support. Next to that, the sequence screen now uses the new sequence endpoint. Yeah, so visual, there is nothing has changed, except the thing that we now have more states. For example, a waiting state or a timeout. Next to that, yeah, some bug fixes like the evaluation screen or the service screen, because if I go here, I select the project different. This screen on the right side, okay, demo environment, nothing works, okay. Yeah, on the right side, the evaluation in the timeline was refreshed or not visible for some seconds because of a polling in the background. Yeah. This is now fixed, and also there were some traces or events that were in the wrong stage. For example, if you have some parallel stages, if you have 2 production stages, the last traces that were updated were in the wrong stage. And this is also now fixed. And yeah, that's basically it. Okay, any questions? Okay, so we'll hand over to Moritz.
Thank you. Let me share as well. Okay. So the last sprint, I mostly worked on a POC and research all around the topic of release automation. I kind of started that now, and I'm planning to implement that first in our Go utils repository, and then from that further elaborate into all the other different repos that we have. And I did a little proof of concept for that to kind of play around with configuration and such things. And at the basis of the whole thing, I chose to use semantic release, which is actually more used in the JavaScript NPM space. So it's actually a fully JavaScript package, but you can use it standalone as well, basically as a CLI. And I want to make use of that to basically fully automate releases, and publishing of new packages, and also the GitHub release that's corresponding to it together with the changelog. And basically, semantic release is kind of extensible and has lots of different plugins that you can use. For example, for changelogs, then there's a separate plugin for GitHub, and other stuff. You can basically execute whatever you want with it as well. And I actually got quite far already. I want to show you the basic configuration first. So basically the whole release automation configuration is in one YAML file that you have in the root of your repository. For now, it's my demo repo. And here, the most important thing is which branches you want to use to release, basically. You can set this, of course, to be automatically run on every push to a branch, for example, or you have it set to manual, and then you run it once on whatever branch you want. Here I've set up all the plugins that I want to use. So I have the commit analyzer, which basically makes use of conventional commits to generate the release notes afterwards, which is handled by the release notes generator. Then, as I mentioned, there's a GitHub plugin. Then there's one to create the changelog markdown file, and then also one for Git, which then tags the new version and stuff like that. And there's lots of different configuration on how you can handle your different types of commits that you want to have. I basically went for the kind of default setup that's generally used on the NPM side of things, but it still kind of applies to us, of course, since those are not really, in any case, dependent on JavaScript or NPM. So let's see here. So those are basically all the different types that you could use to annotate your commit messages. So you could put feature in front, or fix, or chore, docs, example, and so on, depending on what kind of feature you implemented or what bug fix. And then semantic release automatically puts that into a nice format and uses your commit message to automatically generate a changelog. And then there's also stuff like keywords for breaking changes, so that there's a nice big headline with breaking changes with an exclamation mark, and you see immediately, this is the new stuff. If I upgrade to this version, this and that will break, for example. So this is kind of the general configuration that I set up for now. This is maybe kind of interesting, this pattern here. Basically, semantic release makes use of its own branching scheme a little bit. It's not exactly any of the, let's say, standard branching schemes like Git flow or trunk-based development. It's rather a little bit different. And I want to quickly show you a Git graph, how that would look like. it's kind of, let's zoom in a little bit maybe. It's not that well visible right now, but basically this is my test repo.
We cannot see
Oh
it.
yeah. I just noticed. Let me quickly share the new window. No, it should be visible, my terminal. So this is the Git graph for my example repository. And what semantic release actually does is it creates separate maintenance branches for all the different versions that you have. Always with an X in the end, which denotes that all the bug fix releases for 0.14 go to the 0.14.x branch, and then all the bug fix releases are on that branch. Yeah, and then so on for all the different versions, basically. You could also, if you would use the 0 in front, which we currently don't, because we don't fully have the packages generally available yet. There would also be, for example, a 1.x branch, and then on that branch all the minor releases would be, and then from that branch there would be the n.n.x branching away and such. Let me share the other window again. Yeah, so the cool thing is that basically with a super simple GitHub Actions workflow, the whole thing runs automatically. I have a single npm install with the semantic release packages and plugins that I want to use. And then I basically just call the CLI with some parameters, a GitHub token, and that's it. The rest just happens. It determines the right new version number depending on whatever you committed to your repository. It determines if there should even be a release. If you have any faulty commit messages, for example, it doesn't allow you to release a new version on a bug fix branch if you had new features, because that would be on a different branch, of course, and would be a different release. So it has lots of fail safes built in, which is quite nice. Yeah, and in the end, it generates a changelog file for you, which looks like that. So basically, I didn't touch that file at all. It's the only thing I did right is the different feature bullet points here. Those are basically the commit messages I put in, and everything else here is auto-generated. Yeah, so that's kind of the proof of concept for now. I'm still working on it. It's not fully done. I'm still playing around with things like different branching schemes, because I'm not that happy with this n.x scheme and so on. It's a little bit tricky and wouldn't be that useful for us specifically, I think. But yeah, generally the thing already works, and my plan is to integrate it into the Go utils repository first, and then kind of go from that, basically. That's kind of it for me. So I am handing over, if there's actually no questions. Is there any questions?
Yeah, just wanted to say I'm really looking forward to having this for the Go utils, because I think everyone can agree that gathering the release notes manually was always not the most fun task to do.
I can only imagine, yeah. Okay, then I'm handing over to Elisabeth.
Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, so what I did this sprint was a quite big issue. So with completing this, it's now possible to create projects from the bridge instead of using the CLI. So basically the goal was to really just configure a project name, a Git upstream, which is optional, and the shipyard, and yeah, send it to the API and on this way configure your project. What I also did with this issue was to tackle this approval here, so that the fields were quite small. So because I had to touch the files anyway, I just did this with the create a project issue. So just take a short look at it. So I introduced down here the create new project button. If there is no project available, there will also be some sort of pop-up which tells the user, yeah, this it somehow takes the attention to this button if you don't have any projects. So this pops up and is a bit of blinking, not annoyingly blinking, but a bit of blinking. So, but I don't have now for now an empty Keptn installation. The project will stay here. Also, I tested it with if I have a lot of projects. This is fixed. This will always be in front of everything. When I click here, I have the form I mentioned. So with the project name, the Git settings. So as you can see already, I fixed the small field issue here, and also a drag and drop and file selector for the shipyard file, because in the first step, this configuration as this was described in the issue will be postponed until later. So I prepared it because I didn't want you to see all my stuff typed in. So validation, etc., is also already available. So if you type in sockshop, it will tell you that the name is already given. I just call it sockshop new. I have here my Git upstream configured. Then I can, you will not see it, but I just put in the shipyard file. I can also select it from the button. So, oh, not interesting. Yeah. Okay, I will take a look at this, why this is not working. And when I create the project, it will need some time because the Git upstream needs quite some time to be configured. Oh, yeah, now it's done. Okay, so the project was created successfully. As you can see, the Git credentials are still here. Also, the already filled view with the set Git upstream, etc. Yeah, the fields were also improved here, so it's basically the same component. And there's also a hint how to create and onboard a service when a new service from Bridge will be implemented. This message will also be changed that you get directly there. So it's also there. You can go to the docs and yeah, have some guidance how to create services. Yes, so also it's, yeah, it should be here. Nice. Yeah, that's all for me. Are there any questions?
A little bit one remark. Can you again click on the create new project button?
Yep.
Can we make the button on the bottom, the create project button, a little bit smaller? It's quite a heavy one.
Yes, we can.
And right now it's more like
I know.
a separator.
Okay, what I did was basically have it adjusted on the form size, but yeah, I will find a solution for this. Yeah.
And is it necessary to have the mandatory in the headline for project name and shipyard? Or can we add this information when the user did not provide the project
problem
name?
is, so I talked with the UX team about this because, yeah, it would be nice if you just tap through that there will be a validation. They said it's not good UX. So
Okay.
they just told me, because I asked if this is possible for barista components to do this, because I didn't find any solution to trigger the validation and show the error. But yeah, they basically, what they did say is, yeah, maybe just add a hint for mandatory would be better than just, because if I type it in and delete it, yeah, it appears, but yeah, but only if it is already touched. So yeah, we can, maybe we can put it. Yeah, the problem was if I put it here, it's smaller, but then it's a bit inconsistent with the shipyard because the shipyard is also mandatory.
That brings me to another question. Why do we have project name twice?
That's a good question. Because I forgot to remove the label. Yeah. So just let me sum up. So remove the project name label. Yes, then the button, create project button. Smaller, or yeah.
Yeah, like the others.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And yeah, I have to check. Maybe it's some behavior with the delete button, because when I do this like this, it's appearing. Yeah, maybe deletion does something weird. I have to check this. Because I think just overwriting it works pretty fine. Yeah, this works. So yeah, I think this is an issue with the deletion. I will check this. Yeah, about the mandatory, we can also add this asterisk. Maybe, I don't know if this is enough of a hint that this is mandatory.
It's also sometimes used an asterisk. Yeah, maybe let's.
I know
think it's a good idea.
Yeah,
put an asterisk there, and then before the create button, an asterisk again is mandatory.
Once you edit the field, you will get the message below anyway, as you can see now.
Yeah,
it must not be empty. So
the problem is, yes, that if you are on the page and you don't know what has, you look at the form and you don't know what you have to type in to make it work. So yeah, if you try to edit this, yeah, then it becomes clear. But if you just look at it, it's not very clear what you have to use to create a project. So we have to have a hint in some way. So I think the asterisk is yeah, well established way to do this. So if there is nothing against it, I would just yeah, change it like Johannes proposed, if that's okay for you. Okay. So I already adapted the documentation. I wait for the pull request to be done, and then I will open the one for the documentation in case something changes with the screens. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions or feedback? Also very welcome. Okay. I will
So
sharing.
one question. Sorry.
Yeah,
Oh, I
sorry.
was
Yeah,
late. Can you share
do you
again?
need the screen? Yeah, okay, sure.
What happens if you now click on uniform at the project?
Nothing, it's disabled.
It's okay.
Yeah, for when no project, so yeah, when no project is selected, the whole navigation is disabled, but you are still in the context of project, so we thought about showing it anyway. So as soon as it is created, you will anyway be on this page and the navigation gets enabled again.
Okay, and it just so do I get the warning before losing data if I click on another screen without having the project created?
No. Not, no, this is not implemented, but yeah, okay, maybe the Git. So for the name and the shipyard, it's pretty easy to put it in again. But yeah, you may be right. Johannes, what do you think?
Right now, it's just 2 elements, but going forward, when there is also the possibility to configure the shipyard, then it would make sense to inform the user to not move on,
Yeah.
to lose the configuration or the settings.
Okay, yeah, I would then propose, because it's will be it will affect the settings as well as the create screen, maybe just to have another issue to, or I think the update issue is already there, to add this functionality there, if that's okay for you.
Okay.
Just, yeah, because yeah, it totally makes sense, because yeah, if you have a big shipyard configuration and you just misclick something, it's away in Nirvana, and you have to start from scratch. So that's not very comfortable. Okay.
Maybe something a little bit unrelated. Shouldn't there be some form of headline for the settings page? Because you get directly to the settings page after you created the project, right?
Yes, I think that it's because the settings are hidden down there. For the other screens, we don't have a headline either.
Okay.
But it's more clear because the highlight is there, but in the settings is a bit more down.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even
I
see
think
it.
it's
Okay.
it's not very visible. Yeah, that's true.
But you get the confirmation banner anyways, right?
You should get it. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. I guess I can stop sharing now.
And let me just take a look. Yeah, Elizabeth was last in the round. Just resharing for a sec. Any other feedback or questions, maybe from the community? Let's just see. No questions here. And none in the chat. Yeah, some feedback, questions, feel free to ask them. All right, it's not the case. Then thanks to all of you for presenting what you have implemented and worked on the last 2 weeks. Really great progress on really awesome features that are ahead of us. Looking forward to use them. And have to say again, thanks. See you next time, and I wish you a nice rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
You too.
Bye.